Well, does trading in your car really give you peace of mind? Can you really trust the amazing deals that your dealership promises you? Well, it is Tuesday, and as usual, we're talking personal finance with Maya Fisher-French. She's in Cape Town for us, as she usually is on a Tuesday. Maya, good morning. So we're talking about trading in your car for a new one every 3 years or so. Good idea, bad idea?
Well, I think the problem is the way that people generally do it. So what we find is that you get somebody, they go to the dealership and they want the car of their dreams, and the dealer's only too happy to give it to them over a 72-month finance period, usually with about a 30% balloon payment or residual payment at the end. And then they go and after 3 years they trade the car in and they upgrade. And you can imagine that they're nowhere near paying off that original deal because there's still so much sitting there, especially in the residual. So they land up with this really big shortfall of maybe 100,000 Rand. And then they trade up, they upgrade that car, and that 100,000 Rand now gets added to the new car financing. And instead of paying off that 100,000 Rand over the next 3 years, of course, it gets refinanced over another 72 months with a similar kind of deal. And then they come back and they do it again, and now that shortfall's maybe 200,000 Rand. That's the difference between what you're actually getting for the car and what you still owe on the car. Because remember, over 3 years, your car depreciation is at its maximum. So generally, the car's depreciated rapidly, but you haven't really paid it off. And suddenly, after about, you've done this 3 times, you reach a point where you can't do it anymore because you owe so much on the car or all those shortfall that your affordability may be affected. And suddenly you realize, well, you actually can't, let alone trade in after 3 years, you probably can't even trade in after 5 years. And this is something that really dealers are not explaining to people when they sign up this deal. So it can become it can basically become a finance trap for people.
Well, firstly, my question would be, why would somebody want to do this after just 3 years? But I suppose everybody has different reasons, whether it's about looking flashy, whether it's aesthetics, or whether they get bored. I don't know what it is. If they wanted to, whatever their reason was, what are the precautions they should take then? What are the questions they need to be asking? What should they be looking for in the fine print?
And I agree with you completely. I don't think it's a wealth-building strategy to trade in your car every 3 years. But if you want to, you may have work reasons for doing so. Interestingly enough, a lease agreement is quite a good option. Lease agreements aren't great options for longer periods, but for 3 years they do work out quite well because you don't land up with that massive shortfall that you're having to worry about. But a lease agreement does have certain terms and conditions, such as mileage, making sure the car is maintained properly, has its services, and it can also be affected by an accident. And the other option is to shorten the financing period. So, one of the problems is that people get talked into the longer financing periods by the dealership. But if you maybe finance it, for example, over 48 months, then that shortfall between the depreciation and what you owe on the car is much lower, and you can possibly settle that with cash when you do trade the car in. So I would say if you're going to do it, not a great idea. But if you're going to do it, maybe look at a leasing option, or definitely you want to be cutting that finance period. And again, always, as you know, I always say never, ever, ever take that residual or balloon payment, because if you can't buy the car without that, you actually just can't afford it.
Well, Maya, I suppose at this point, some of us would ask, why isn't anybody taking on these car dealerships, taking on these places that tend to take advantage of some people, some customers who probably don't know any better?
Unfortunately, it's legal. So it's legal to take a 72-month deal with a 30% residual. It's not advised, but it is legal. And, the car dealer's trying to sell the most expensive car they can. So I suppose it's up to us on shows like this to really highlight this. And I think we do need, especially around car deals, I would just love to see so much more financial education, because from my perspective, the questions that I get from my readers and viewers is really often about the fact that they've got trapped into car deals that they actually can't afford. So I think, unfortunately, we can challenge the ethics of it, but legally, they're entitled to do it.
It's up to the customer to do, I suppose, what's best for them and check it all out. All right, thanks very much. And I'm sure Maya will continue to do some focus, like you say. We need to educate the customer, and we'll look at what else is being done out there that puts customers in a very, very bad financial